Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Crowdsource Commander. I am always your host, Chris. And today, as voted on by you on Twitter, we are building this wonderful little fella over here. Torens, Fist of the Angels. Torens is a human cleric for 1 green and white. He's 2/2, and he has training. So whenever he attacks and anything bigger than him attacks with him, he gets a +1/+1 counter. Bigger power, toughness doesn't matter. And then the big part, whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 1/1 green and white human soldier creature token with training. So he's kind of a monastery mentor who spits out 1/1 tokens that get bigger over time. The difference between mentor and Torens is when Torens tokens get bigger, they stay bigger. You have to put in a little more work to make them bigger because the monastery mentor tokens got bigger every time you cast an instant or sorcery. These you have to attack with something bigger, but that's not tricky to do in a format like Commander. So we're going to do it. As always, we do have our theme and rules. Theme is pretty easy. The glow up. Basically, we're playing a bunch of small creatures and making them huge slowly over time or all at once. I don't know exactly yet. We'll see when we build the deck, since that's why we build the deck, to see what happens. Our rules for this deck as we go along building it. No dedicated creature removal, so no targeted creature removal is what I'm going with here. We're in white and green, which aren't the best colors for it. White actually has a lot of options. Green, you have a lot of fight mechanics and things that can do it. Don't care. We're not going to do it. If we're going to remove creatures, we're going to do it by forcing them to block us, because we're going to spew out a ton of stuff, make it huge, and swing over and over again until people die, is the plan. And we don't need to waste slots on things like Path to Exile or things like that. Honestly, we should be wasting slots on things like Path to Exile, but again, restrictions breed creativity and free up more room for other things, so why not? Rule number 2. The deck has to be at least 1/3 creatures. Torens likes creatures, we want creatures. I have a tendency to go creature light when I build things, even if they are creature-centric, because I tell myself I build in a lot of recursion and redundancy, but that never exactly works out, so I'm forcing myself I must have at least 33 creatures in this deck. Technically, since this is 100 cards, it's 33 1/3, so I should round up to 34, so why not? You must have at least 34 creatures in this deck by the time it's done. Our last rule is our money limit, and this time, no, there is no money limit. We can go as big as we want. We're green-white. Green has a lot of power. White is a little underpowered, famously, in Commander, so we're going to take advantage of everything we possibly can. So, we're building. It's Training Men, because why wouldn't I name it It's Training Men? We're building an army of human clerics. Torens appears to be a dude, so It's Training Men is the name of this, because that name makes me happy. Alright, let's get into it. As always, I like to kind of build in a certain order that is very loose the way I end up building these things, but at least it gives us something to start with. So I like starting with the lands. Here is Torens on EDH Rec. We use EDH Rec to start, and then we veer off from there. What is it I'm going to say? 346 decks so far with Torens. He's not the most popular commander yet. He is relatively new, and he does fill that nice creature token niche that a bunch of other commanders are already in, but kind of in a different way. So I think he's got potential going forward, but so far, not a ton yet. Let us hop down to the lands and see where we're at. I'm still gonna aim for 38 lands to start, which is just where I like to start and then adjust up or down depending on where we end up. I think this might end up being a little lighter of a lands deck. We'll see. Command Tower, I've said this pretty much every time. 2-color decks I don't think need Command Tower, unless you are really hurting for another dual land, especially if you're a budgety build, because Command Tower's been reprinted so often. There's other things. There's other things that do other things, and I don't know why the page keeps refreshing on me like that, but it's done it a few times now. Anyway, lands. Let's see. Canopy Vista enters battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands. I mean, that's fine. Temple Garden, sure, if we end up with fetches, which we will, since we are unlimited money-wise. Sun Petal Grove, I always like the check lands. They are pretty easy gate to hit, to pass, so yeah, they're good. Overgrown Farmland is enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands. The new one. I really like this land cycle, especially for Commander. I like it for Standard and Historic and Modern as well, but Commander, it feels this cycle of lands is really quite good. Are there any fun lands to play for Human, Tribal, Yavimaya Hollow, Pendlehaven, Gavany Township? Definitely. Pendlehaven, I'm not so sure, just because all of our creatures are going to get big pretty quick. Like, I don't want our creatures to be targetable by Pendlehaven for too long. Yavimaya Hollow is definitely a thought. I have a few thoughts for lands, including one oldie that I'm not sure about, but we'll see. That'll be utility lands for now. We're just filling out some of the mana stuff. Fortified Village is the reveal one. I'm not the biggest fan of these in Commander, just because I like playing a ton of weird utility lands and like as many dual lands or weird lands as I can shove in, so I don't usually end up with a ton of basics. You can build around basics as a thing, especially if you're going snow-covered. I don't think we have a reason to in this deck, but we'll see. The Pathways, I do like the Pathways. They're great. Beautiful Promenade. These lands are essentially built for Commander, unless you have 2 or more opponents, so I like this cycle of lands. They are a little spendy, but it's fine. Temple of Plenty. Fortified Village is a pretty bad cycle, though. I think it has a place in, like, constructed aggro formats, but yeah, for Commander, I don't know why this thing keeps refreshing every 10 seconds. It's very weird. But yeah, that entire cycle is pretty bad. Growing Rites of Itlimoc is definitely going to be a thing. Cryptolith Rite is probably going to be a thing as well. Temple of Plenty, I've talked about before how if a land is going to enter tapped, it has to do a lot to earn that, because that is a very big cost in something like Commander. Falling behind a turn or 2 can be really bad. Temple of Plenty, the Scry one, is especially in colors that aren't the best at drawing cards. That is pretty much the line for a land entering tapped. Scry one is very good. Windswept Heath will throw in. I do like it a lot. If you are not budget building, OG fetches are fantastic. I guess these aren't the OG fetches even. There were terrible fetches before this that entered tapped and then searched up basics. Anyway, the fetches that everybody talks about when they say fetches, those are the good ones. Good lord, why are you doing this? This is going to be annoying the whole time, but whatever, I'll just fight through it. Wooded Bastion is the filter land. I don't know why, I'm always hesitant on the filter lands. Exotic Orchard, no. Frozen Purge, this is what I was talking about. These are some of the OG, really old school fetches that are awful. Frozen Verge, I don't know if that's the OG one. I think I'm thinking of something else, but like, yeah, so you add colorless, and then you can grab a forest and a plains by paying 2 and tapping it. You put them on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. That actually has a decent amount of utility, especially if we're throwing in type duels like your Canopy Vistas, your Temple Gardens, your Savannas even. Because Crows and Birds can go get those and put them onto the battlefield tapped, which isn't bad. But I don't know if we want to be taking time off to do that kind of thing. I guess it does thin as well. Thinning is such a weird statistical thing. Like, when you try to talk about thinning in Magic, people get very upset one way or the other. I do think there is some small statistical edge to it, but I think that matters more if you're playing really grindy, like, blue-black style attrition decks. I don't think it matters as much if you're just trying to power out a ton of stuff and win quick. I don't know where our deck is going to fall. It's definitely not blue-black control grind, but I don't know if we are super aggro or not, so we'll see. Path of Exile, add 1 when that mana is spent to cast a creature that shares creature type with your commander, scry 1. It does enter tapped, which is bad. I don't know how many humans and or clerics we're going to play. I'd assume a decent amount, just because a lot of them are good. But I don't know yet, so I'm gonna hold off. Sungrass Prairie is a weird one. Myriad Landscaped enters tapped. It does ramp decently nicely after that. I think I want the other version of that, which I don't know if it's going to be on this list, but we'll find it. It's the green one that I always forget. It's 3 and a green to activate. Does generally that same sort of thing, except they don't have to share a land type, and it enters untapped and taps for colorless as well. I'll think of the name at some point. Selesnya Sanctuary, the bounce lands I like if you have a reason to be replaying lands, like you have a particular utility land that you want to re-enter the battlefield, you have a landfall theme. By itself, I don't like it, so until we have a reason to, I'm going to say no on Selesnya Sanctuary. Scatter Groves is the cycling land. I don't particularly like... Do I think we... cycling is also very good, so I'll throw it in. We're also going to throw in some of the other cycling lands that are options, we'll see. Fabled Passage, sure. Horizon Canopy. Yeah, I like... This color combination isn't the best at drawing cards, so I'll take some amount of it. Savannah, sure. We don't have a... Blighted Woodland, that was the land I was trying to think. But yeah, Savannah I'll throw in. We don't have a money limit. I happen to own some of these. Cavern is a maybe. Did we already pass Cavern? I thought I saw it up here somewhere. It might be in utility lands. Cavern is a definite thought once we get our creature base more solidified. If we have a ton of humans and or clerics and or soldiers or whatever, I'm all for it, but I'm not going to throw it in quite yet. Good lord, this is so annoying. Where am I at? I'm somewhere down here. Alright, we have a bunch of the other fetches. I have 14 lands already, and we haven't even done the utility lands. I will throw in some more number of fetches of the actual type. I just threw in Prismatic Vista, because why not? Guildgate, no, and Unclaimed Territory, not yet. Especially for only 2 color. Like, Unclaimed Territory I see more in, like, Modern Humans, where you're technically playing 5 colors, essentially, but they're all creatures, so you can get away with that. Real quick, utility lands. Hey, Gavany Township, we like. Yapmaya Cradled Growth, sure. Castle Ardenvale, we like creatures. Karn's Bastion is actually really funny in a +1/+1 counters deck, which we are, since training does put counters on the creatures. Reliquary Tower... I don't think we're going to end up needing Reliquary Tower. Like, I'm going to try to find ways for us to draw cards and have a full hand. I don't know we're going to need to go over 7 the whole time, but like, you know, just be spilling cards out of our hand or not, so I don't know on that one. Windburst Heights and Mosswort Bridge. Here's the thing. The plan is we should be able to trigger both of those. I just don't know how big of a fan of Hideaway I always am. Mosswort Bridge I think I'm more likely to like. You know what? We'll throw them both in. Windburst, like, we're going to have enough tokens and token makers, especially for throwing in cards like Castle Ardenvale, that I am down for it. Rogue's Passage. What do we think of Rogue's Passage? Oran Reef of Astwood, definitely. We do want to make big creatures an attack, but I kind of like forcing blocks more. We're already at 22 lands. We're going to throw in some number of basics. Maybe. Stop it. I'll throw it in for now, but that one's kind of on the line for me. That might get cut. Dryad Arbor. I like being able to fetch a 1/1 out with anything that can get a forest. Having creatures and blocking is nice. The problem with it is it doesn't really interact with Torens all that well. Torens makes a token whenever you cast a creature. You don't cast Dryad Arbor ever, you only ever play it. And we're going to have plenty of creatures. I don't know that we need the body on the land like that. Like, I'm all for us maybe playing some other man lands that can potentially trigger training on some of our creatures, but Dryad Arbor I don't know if that's where I want. Gaia's Cradle I would love to play. I don't own one. It's expensive enough that I can't reasonably ask to borrow one for the stream from Card Kingdom. And I don't really want to pay $1,200 for a card right now, so I'm going to skip Gaia's Cradle. So while I say we're technically unlimited on our money, we're unlimited in cards I already own and or can maybe finagle a little bit with my bosses to borrow for a day. But, yeah. Borrowing cards is kind of tricky because we want to be able to sell them for, you know, the best condition you can, and it's a whole thing. It can happen, but it's kind of involved. Emeria, at the beginning of your epic, if you control 7 or more planes, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Do we have 7 or more planes? We might. Urza's Saga I'm definitely throwing in just because it's fantastic. We'll find a couple of 1-drop artifacts that we're going to want, at the very least. I don't know about 0. The Hall of Heliod's Generosity. Are we playing a bunch of enchantments? I don't know. Same for Temple of the False God. I don't know. If we end up playing a bunch of enchantments, then Hall, yes. Temple I know is good, but I don't know that it's better than a colored mana source. I don't know how big we're going. So for now, I think that's a decent start for lands. We'll fill out some more number with basics, and I have a couple of other ideas. One that I want to look into that wasn't on that list is an oldie but a goodie. If we want to be pumping out a bunch of creatures over time, Keldoran Outpost is one of the best ways to do that, especially in white. If Keldoran Outpost would enter the battlefield, sacrifice planes instead. If you do, put Keldoran Outpost onto the battlefield if you don't put it into its own graveyard. So it's land parity. It never goes up in mana. The turn you play it, you have to sacrifice planes. It can be a tapped plane, so we can already have paid something and then get it. Taps for white, but it's also a very cheap way, 1 and a white and tapped, to put a 1/1 white soldier creature token onto the battlefield. So that is probably going in our list because I like it and it's funny to me. So I'm going to add that in before I forget, since that is not part of our EDH rec list. There's Keldoran Outpost. Somebody mentioned Yavimaya Hollow earlier. I just blocked my own chat window by pulling up the ability to edit our deck. Jumi, you are the one who suggested Yavimaya Outpost, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to want it. Or Yavimaya Hollow, sorry. Hollow. Regenerate target creature? Yeah, we can throw that in there. I like that. My Hollow. Protect our Torens and some other things. They're going to have to exile it to get it off the board. What any other lands we can think of? We already, like I said, we have 24 to add here, so we'll do that real quick. Copy those. Put them in the list. Save our deck. Oh yeah, we're doing good so far. We have 28 lands in there for now. Let's just update and see where we're at. Get all my different views of the deck updated real quick, so that when I go to this view, it looks somewhat reasonable. Get rid of that for now. So yeah, that's where we're at. Already a decent chunk of change we're spending. Most of that is the Savannah, but even still, it's a decent amount of money in them there lands. Yeah, not bad so far. We do only have the 1 plains, the 1 forest. Did I throw in Emeria? Because if I already threw in Emeria, I did not throw in Emeria yet. Okay, good. Let's assume we're going to want at least 4 of each basic, I guess. At least. That takes us up to 34, so we have a few more land slots to play around with. I can see us wanting to end up running with 34. I guess I'll also throw in my usual Ghost Quarter and Wasteland, just because having those effects open to you is very useful. I would rather not need it and have the option than desperately need to kill somebody's land to live in the game and not be able to even consider doing that. So, yeah, there we go. Up to 36. So we got a couple more land slots to play around in. We're keeping caverns in mind. Strip Mine is good. It's meaner. It just feels meaner than Ghost Quarter. It's like the littlest bit of politicking possible is that Ghost Quarter at least giving them a chance to keep parity on land. Like, I don't mind. I don't want to necessarily deny people mana. I want to deny them utility, if that makes sense. Especially because I'm building this deck for a stream, so I want to keep things somewhat entertaining. I want people to be able to cast their stuff and then just react to whatever they're casting. I don't want people to just be stranded with a ton of cards in hand. And I know that if I play Strip Mine, I'm going to play Crucible of Worlds and a bunch of other land recursion stuff so that I can do that because I'm a mean and bad person. So I am going to remove the temptation from myself immediately. Anyway, going on. Utility art, or mana artifacts. I can't believe Sol Ring isn't on here. We're not going to play a ton, I think, but we'll definitely play a couple. I do like Signet, or Selesnya Signet, not necessarily Arcane. The Talisman of Unity I don't really care about, so we'll throw in the... Oh, let's clear that out. I'm just going to add into my behind-the-scenes list here. Selesnya Signet. Signet. There we go. I'll add in Sol Ring. When you say altars, which ones? Because there's Phyrexian Altar we can do. There's Ashnods. We are a token deck. We are trying to spit out as many tokens as we possibly can. I like the idea of having an altar. I'm just trying to figure out which one and how many, because I also don't necessarily want to spend a ton of room on artifacts, if we can help it. With the 2 artifacts I already have in there, we are up to 39 cards total with Torens as well. And I do want some other 1-drop artifacts. Oh, I see. Sol Ring and Arcane Signet are in reprints. Of course. Why not? I guess this is a new enough deck that I'm not shocked that it'll do it. Ashnods, yeah, probably. Do we want Phyrexian or Ashnods? We'll keep those in mind. I know I want at least one more mana-producing artifact. We'll start with Mind Stone, in addition to one of the altars eventually, but Mind Stone is kind of my go-to. I want something, I want to be able to draw cards off of it eventually, and it's just a good way. It's a good middle ground. It's cheap, it taps for mana, and then you can trade it in once you no longer need it to draw a card. It's fine. It's not very exciting, but it's fine. We can throw in things like Thran Dynamo, Worn Power Stone, kind of the higher end ones, but again, I'm thinking this deck ends up fairly low to the ground. So we'll see. Oh yes, progress. We're on Ramp and Rock, so we can do Ramp now. Let us look at Ramp. I'm kind of just going to scan through. We'll get back to a lot of these cards because we'll get there when we get to their section in the progress bar. But for now, I'm just looking at things that actually ramp us. So like Augur of Autumn lets us play lands off the top, but it doesn't give us extra land drops, so it doesn't count as ramp, that sort of thing. Oh my lord, this thing where it keeps refreshing automatically is so annoying. Do we want we want Dorks, just because they're cheap ramp and they'll trigger Torens even if we draw them late, which is good. Ramp specific things. Let's see. We'll throw in the Llanowar, so we have a mana dork that taps for white, a mana dork that taps for green. Do we want extra tappers of kinds? We can't play Hierarch because it taps for blue. We can play things like Birds if we really want. I don't mind Birds. Yeah, Birds has utility to it. Absence Pilgrim we already added. That was the one up here. Yeah, Pilgrim. 3 dorks so far. Maybe a 4th one if I see a good one. But I'm also starting to just look for normal rampy things. Sakura Tribe Elder is a thought. Maybe. We'll see. What else do we got? Not Realm Walker is not what I'm thinking of. Arbor Elf could be a thing. Untapping Forest has more utility. Yeah, I like that. Also, if we're playing with Cradle of Yavimaya, that untaps any of our lands, which is fun and funny. Can let us do some very silly things. Alright. I don't know there's a lot of instant ramp we can possibly do. So we get into our actual ramp type stuff. Good Lord, stop it. Why is it doing that? Does anybody know why this would be doing that? I have no idea why this keeps refreshing that way. It is so annoying. I'm flustered now. I don't know where I'm at. So we have Kadama's Reach, which we don't have a ton of basics. If I'm going to do something like that, I would rather do... Holy buckets. Is it going to be in here? Let's see. It is not in there. So what am I thinking of? I'm thinking of Sky Shroud Claim. That's it. It's more expensive. Kadama's Reach costs 3. You get 2 basics that enter tap. Sky Shroud Claim, you get 2 forests that enter untapped. And again, if we're playing something like Yavimai's Cradle, forests can be anything. So let's throw in Sky Shroud Claim. Add that. We'll add our 4 actual bits of ramp. Or rampy creatures. Save that. So with our bits of ramp and all of our lands that we have so far, we look like... Is it? Get rid of that, get rid of the ads, and switch the view. There's where we're at right now. So we're 45 cards in. Started our creature base. Yeah, we're going. We're chugging along here. Not bad. Not going to have a ton of spells or anything, so... Yeah. What is next? Ooh, wrong bit. I hit the wrong one. Let's get all those back up there. Draw and removal. So removal, I said no targeted removal is one of our rules over here. Rule number 2. Over there. There. But that doesn't mean we can't do any kind of removal, and we're definitely going to do some. So, what do we want for card draw? Let's see. We can do Heronblade Elite, I guess, for more ramp, but again, we'll figure out humans. Most of our little ramp creatures over there aren't humans yet, and let's go over here so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, what do we got? We're looking for creature removal. Excuse me. Felt that one coming. Beast Within I might play just because it's not dedicated creature removal, it is dedicated permanent removal, which is not the worst thing for us to have. Swords Plowshares we can't play because that is definitely creature removal. Let us see. what else do we got for card draw and creature removal? We can do Shamanic Revelation. Should be a big one for us. We're planning to go pretty wide, so Shamanic Revelation is going to be a great way for us to refill our hand at any point. Aura Shards is removal of a kind that I very much like. Playing this card, by the way, is going to make people hate us and try to kill us immediately, or at the very least Aura Shards. I'm fine with that if we can get 1 or 2 activations out of it. Let us see. Generous Gift is White Beast Within. Destroy target permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 green elephant creature token. You know what? Sure. We can have 2 of those kind of effects. Winds of Abandon. Rads we're going to get to. I'm sure Winds of Abandon is going to be one of them. Oh my god. Conclave, Mentor, Cemetery Protector is not the... yeah. Whenever you play a land or cast a spell. That's not removal yet. We'll get there. If you want to make people not like you at Commander, play Drannith Magistrate. It's hilarious because it stops people from playing their commanders. Because your opponents can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hands, including the command zone. It is good fun. What else do we got here? We're looking for card draw and removal. And I know I went past something that I wanted to get. Oh my lord. Welcoming Vampire. There we go. It's Mentor of the Meek. I know we scrolled past at some point or another. Welcoming Vampire is Mentor of the Meek, but you don't have to pay for it, but you can only do it once a turn. I'm fine with that, just because that does just keep us in cards for a long time. We can do Savior of All and Back, except that is targeted creature removal, which I said we aren't going to do. So I'm thinking more things like Reclamation Sage and stuff that gets rid of things that aren't necessarily creatures. But that was in creatures, so now we're into instants. And we're definitely going to find some card draw and whatnot otherwise here. Tutors, not yet. If you've watched me ever build a deck, you know I feel kind of meh about tutors in casual EDH. They're fine. I definitely don't mind anybody else running them. I try not to, just because I think decks end up sillier the more you have to work to make them go off. You have to build a little differently when you only get to play what's off the top of your deck. Okay, what do we got? Kabir Takedown deals damage equal to the number of creatures you control. The target creature or planeswalker is unfortunately targeted creature removal. Return to Dust. Oh, Lord. Frozen Grip is fun. Sundering Growth is a thing. We can Sundering Growth. Why not? And then we get into sorceries, which is where we are definitely going to be getting into whatchamacallit? Rads. Stuff like Hour of Reckoning. Destroy all non-token creatures is very funny with Convoke, so I'll throw that in. I do like Austere Command here, because that does let us, again, have all of our tokens remain. Vanquish the Horde can be a 2-drop Wrath, which is funny. We are also looking for card draw, so stuff like Harmonize could be a thing. I kinda like Camaraderie. Maybe. Winds of Abandon. Here we are. So here's the dilemma. Winds of Abandon technically violates our rule about no targeted creature removal. If we only ever say we're going to play it overloaded, we can get around that. However, that seems a little cheaty. And also, we have other ads that the entire point of the other ads is they cost less. Like Austere Command doesn't cost less, but it's a little more modal. Hour of Reckoning costs more, but it has Convoke, so we'll be able to pay less mana for it. Yeah, I don't know. Dusk Till Dawn, it's going to hit us. We want Dusk Till Dawn to hit us. Or Dusk to Dawn, however you say it. Yeah. We can't just play good old-fashioned Wrath of God. I think I do want at least one more Wrath. So we have 3 so far. Yeah, I think that's good to start. Alright, so with that, we add all of those things, which are various ways to draw cards. We have to have some other way to draw cards, right? We will count What's-His-Face as card draw. I swear I have a plan in mind when I say What's-His-Face. Esper Sentinel, there we go. That's definitely card draw, especially over time. Yeah. Alright, so we copy that, move that over into our deck builder over here on MTG Goldfish. So we're now up to 56 cards total. We only have 7 creatures so far, so we're going to need to get working on that pretty soon. Just so we can see where we're at. Refresh all of these pages. And click over to our visual views. There we go. Alright. Looking pretty good so far. Like I said, 56 lands were above $750, so definitely not a budget build. I don't think too mean or anything yet, though. Definitely the beginnings of some powerful stuff. But let's figure out what that powerful stuff is, especially as we go to building theme, which is going to be basically throwing a ton of creatures in that help us build our creatures up huge. So, stuff like Catil the Dawnheart Prime is fantastic because that is both ramp and making our creatures huge over time. Only humans get the add 1 mana of any color of this creature's colors. Oh, that reminded me. I was going to throw Cryptolith right into the deck, wasn't I? Let us do that, and we'll count that as our ramp. Cryptolith Right add. For those who don't know what Cryptolith Right is, let's throw it on screen real quick. Cryptolith Right. Creatures you control all turn into Birds of Paradise. It's pretty good. It does a lot of work, especially in Go Wide decks. You have all of the mana you ever need. Yeah, basically everything gets Convoke. Is another way of looking at it. What do we got? We have Adeline. Adeline is fine. Adeline is very easily removed. Yes, we are going to definitely throw in Augur of Autumn. Since, yeah, that it does a lot of things we want it to do. We get to plan ahead slightly more with our draws. Play lands off the top, and eventually play creatures off the top, which is pretty good. Kyler, whenever another human enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Kyler. Other humans you control get +1/+1 for each counter on Kyler. Of note, it does not say non-token humans, so Toren and Kyler are besties, because as Torens pumps out human tokens, Kyler gets huge. Everybody wins. Adeline, I think I was talking about for a second there. Adeline is good in that it makes a human creature token for each opponent. So every time you attack, you make 3 human creature tokens. So, yeah. I mean, that's good enough that I can't really deny it. What do we got here? Thalia's Lieutenant will definitely throw in. Creatures with power less than Champion of Landhold's power can't block creatures you control. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Champion of Landhold. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Oh my god. Champion of the Parish is most definitely a yes, since it just grows huge over time. Rite of Harmony is an interesting one. It is essentially Glimpse of Nature, but also for enchantments. I don't think we care as much about the enchantment part at the moment. It's a definite way we can draw a ton of cards, but don't know how much we care. What else do we got? Each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has flying. So yeah, the Abzan Falconer we like, not for the Outlast. The Outlast can be good, but we want it more for that, because training's going to put a bunch of counters on our creatures. We do need some amount of higher powered creatures to start, just to get Torens going with the training. Getting all of the 1/1 tokens I'm not so worried about. I would like Torens to be able to grow a little bit. Cathar Commando, having flash and all of that, is good. I don't even know where I am now. Cathar Commando, there we go. The utility to destroy stuff is nice, but it's just a 3/1 with flash. It does a decent amount. Like, if I'm gonna play Reclamation Sage, can I really not play Cathar Commando? So, tell you what, I'm gonna add in Cathar Commando. I'm gonna get rid of Reclamation Sage. Because it's the same total amount of mana to actually destroy an artifact or something. But Cathar Commando is a human, which works a little better for us. Draw a card for each. Hey, Inspiring Call. I'll definitely call on theme. It draws us cards, it protects our creatures. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Beast Whisperer. Another good card draw spell for us. Sereth. Other tapped creatures you control have Death Touch. Other untapped creatures you control have Hexproof. You can untap target land or creature you control. Sure, you know what? Why not? Scarred Summons. Creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them have... where'd you go? There you are. Base power and toughness 4/4, have flying, and are angels in addition to their other types. That's pretty good, but it feels a little... It's not exactly... I guess it is win more at some point. It's also, by itself, doesn't do a lot. Like, cards like Beast Whisperer, even if I'm not able to cast creatures, like I'm hellbent and going off the top, it by itself is at the very least a small body that can jump. Scarred Summons, if I play it and the board gets wiped and then I'm playing off the top, it doesn't do anything, so less likely to include it just on principle. Lenore, or Leonore. Coven. Beginning of combat on each return, +1/+1 counter on each of up to one target creature you control. Then if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, draw a card. It's certainly not awful. It's just not the most inspiring thing ever. Cathar's Crusade. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. It's very good. It's definitely a little win-more-y. Maybe? It's another one of those do-nothing enchantments if I don't have a board going already. Hamza, we'll see. What else do we got going here? Eternal Witness, sure. It's a human. Why not? Heroic Intervention, I always like. I like being able to protect my armies if I can. Aura Shards, whenever creature... Oh, we already have that one. Skull Clamp, I'm definitely throwing in. It's card draw. Very quickly, a lot of our creatures end up hopefully classing out of being able to be cashed in by Skull Clamp, but Torens should always be pumping out stuff that can die, so I'm not overly worried about it. Maja, or Maha? Maja for now. Sure. Brightguard, Protector, other creatures you control get +1/+1. Whenever a land makes humans. So yeah, just basically anytime I take any sort of action, I want to be rewarded with a human token. Seems good. We can do Thalia. It messes up some of our stuff too, I guess. It's very good at messing up people's plans, though. I'm going to skip it for now. Hamza. For each creature you control with +1/+1 counters, potentially down to 2 mana. Creatures you cast cost 1 less to cast for each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Yeah, sure. It's not a human, but, like, all of that is very good, so sure. Just means all of our bigger stuff. Like, say, Sigarda Heron's Grace works very cheaply. Toski, I don't know. Toski is super annoying to play against. I'm definitely going to throw in Shalai, just because it's funny. Toski can't be countered, it's indestructible, it attacks each combat, which can be annoying, but whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Sure, why not? We're going kinda ham here. Let's go big. Flying Trample, humans you control get +1/+1. Whenever Sigarda attacks, you control 3 or more creatures with different powers. Look at the top 5 cards of your library and you reveal a human card. Put it into your hand. It's Flying Trample, humans get +1/+1. Coven will do a thing some amount of time. I'm willing to skip this version of Sigarda. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature and 1 on Juniper Order Ranger. That's fine. We have a bunch of effects that do that kind of thing already. Audric we could throw in. I am hesitant to throw Audric in just because Audric is essentially, if you already have an army, if you play Audric and they can't answer it, and you're able to swing with your army, like especially if you can give Audric haste or something, which we might be able to do. We haven't quite gotten to stuff that can do that yet, but it's basically win on the spot. I don't know how much I like playing win on the spot cards that, I guess it's not too ridiculous because they generally have a turn cycle to try and answer it. Sure. This is probably going to end up being one of the meanest decks I ever build for Commander Kingdom. We'll see. Mikaeus works with Hamza really funny. Because, like, if we have 5 creatures with +1/+1 counters on them, we can pay a single white mana and have Mikaeus enter as X equaling 5. Which is real funny. Does let us grow our team real fast. Sure. Conclave Mentor. If 1 or more +1/+1 counters we put on a creature you control, that many +1. Yeah, we'll do that. Hopeful Initiate is a card that pops up in like white standard decks right now. It's a decent training thing that can blow up artifacts or enchantments. Sure, why not? There's always a ton of like pesky artifacts and enchantments in Commander games. We have a ton of ways to read them already, but you know what? Redundancy is good. Karametra, I don't care as much. Cemetery Protector, exiles when it enters. Whenever you play a land or cast a spell, it shares a card type with the exiled card. Create a 1/1 white human creature token. I don't know that that's... We have a bunch of things that do that sort of thing already, and it's very conditional. I think we want room for something else. We can throw in Craterhoof as a win con, but I feel like Audric already takes the spot that Craterhoof would of a creature that can just win the game essentially on the spot if it's unanswered. And Craterhoof ends the game really on the spot, like the turn you play it. Sometimes out of nowhere. I will throw in Athalia. I'm gonna skip Elish Norn for now, just because that can be a little too demoralizing. Intrepid Adversary is the thing. But I don't think... Yeah, I don't think that's really what I want. Knight of the White Orchid, meh. Mother of Runes is great, but... But what? What am I really protecting? I guess I'm protecting almost anything. Do we feel like Mother of Runes is worth it? I don't know. Good Fortune Unicorn mimics a lot of things we already have going on. Orin Frostfang is funny. Just that anything instantly when we're attacking has Death Touch. And it has the gives everything the Magpie ability. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card is good. Maybe. Throw it in for now, but I'm not 1,000,000% sold on that. Realm Walker. We can do Realm Walker. Realm Walker works good. We definitely have enough humans now where that's a thing. White Mane Lion lets us protect something, but I don't know that I care as much. Hamlet Vanguard is just going to be a house, as far as it's just going to be huge. But it doesn't trample or anything. I'm less sold on it right now. So this is... God Eternal Ketra is obviously good. I'm going to try to stick a little more thematic at the moment. Luminarch Aspirant is just so annoying in constructed decks and other formats right now. It feels good, but a little slow in Commander, if that makes sense. Like, we have a bunch of effects that put +1/+1 counters on everything at once. This does it for free every turn. It's still obviously good. And being low to the ground certainly isn't the worst thing, but I just don't know at the moment. See, if we're gonna do Luminarch Aspirant, I'd rather do something like Victory's Envoy, except it's 5 mana, where it does that same sort of thing, but for every creature. But even now, I don't know that I'm throwing it on there. Cloaked Cadet is card draw, for us putting +1/+1 counters on things, so sure. Grand Abolisher is, if I was building this deck not for a stream, I would absolutely throw it in there, but it's just very unfun to watch because it just means your turn is only your turn and there's not a lot of interaction. Like, if it just stopped one thing or the other, casting spells or activating abilities, I'd throw it in just because that's good protection. But stopping everything else from happening on my turn is... it's a little too boring in Commander. It makes things too boring, I guess. Devout Chap, we have other things that already do this sort of thing, but it's a good idea, I guess. Destiny Spinner, I don't know what other people in the pod are playing yet, so I don't know if we have to worry about things being countered. I am not going to worry about it right now. Tuskguard Captain, stuff has Trample. Sure. We can do stuff like Recruiter. Shauna has half of Hexproof and then is just huge otherwise. It's fine, it's not fantastic. Where are we at? Rick, I don't own, I don't particularly want to buy. It's good. Humans you control have each of the chosen abilities between First Strike, Vigilance, and Lifelink. You get 2 of them. And as long as you control 4 or more humans, like, it's obviously good, but it's just so... There's a lot of baggage around Rick. I don't want to spend $50 on Rick. Yeah, not right now. Knight of Autumn is good, but honestly a little meh. So yeah, I don't know on that one. Real quick, we're at 29 cards. That is a pretty good haul of mostly creatures. Let's throw them into the list and see where we're at. I think this deck is going to build itself somewhat quickly. It's just going to be the last few spots and like finagling that last little bit that's going to be a thing. We definitely aren't going to struggle for what goes in. Hilariously enough, we do still need a couple more creatures. One second, just adjusting some windows here so that it'll be a little cleaner once I switch over to the visual view. Let us clean things up a little bit here. Gonna make the cards a little harder to see, but fit more of them onto the screen, so we have an actual idea of what we are dealing with. For those of you who can't see the total price, which I think is everybody the way this is currently framed, we are looking at $876 and change, so definitely a spendy deck at this point. Not bad. We are 83 cards? Is that 5? Sorry. My eyesight is not the best anymore. I am an old man. 85 cards in. I am willing to throw in Cavern of Souls at this point. I don't know. So far, I'm trying to think through all of Commander Kingdom, has anybody played a counterspell? Ben's Octavia deck maybe did. Yeah, I don't know. I'm fine with throwing in another land or two, though, so Cavern it is. And then after this, I'm willing to move us along the progress bar to utility. We still need a couple of more creatures, at least, and we'll figure that out. But I am going to throw in our Cavern of Souls, just to get that going and in there. Did that throw in the cavern? There, that one threw in the cavern. For some reason it didn't on the one view. Huh. I don't know why. The visual thing stopped updating as much, but the list threw in cavern. That's weird. Anyway. Cavern definitely bumped us up a bit, being, holy crap, I had no idea Cavern of Souls had gotten that expensive. That's crazy. Okay. Yeah, I know it's a good card, but good lord. That's a little nuts. Alright, so we're doing utility stuff now. I'm going to start with utility artifacts and then enchantments and things and figure out what we want. Oh, we can do the Great Henge. It's obviously good. It's card draw and ramp and a bunch of other things. Sure. Catcher's Monument, white creature spells we control cost 1 less. Whenever we cast a creature spell, it's not a human creature that's coming in. It's obviously good. I'm going to skip it just to stay a little more on theme. The beginning of this is... Blackcrasher's Bestiary is fine. I don't think I want to spend the room on it right now, though. Holy crap, this is the most annoying stream because of that dumb refresh thing that I don't know why is happening. Green speed for Feronis' Monument over here. Green creature spells cost 1 less. Cost 1 less to cast. And meh, very meh. Throne of the God Pharaoh. What do you do again at the beginning of your end step? Each opponent loses life equal to the number of... Is it creatures we have? If it's creatures we have, that's crazy. Number of tapped creatures you control. Very thematic. Wants to have creatures worshipping, so bent over, tapped. We're going to be attacking a decent amount, but that feels weird. I don't know why. Pen and Blade I will look up in 1 second. Vanquisher's Banner was enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures chosen type get +1/+1. Draw a card. It's good. We have a bunch of things that do that. Idol of Oblivion, we can draw a card or make a big thing, but it's kind of meh. Coat of Arms is a huge win more card for us. Cloudstone Curio lets us bounce things, which can be funny. It is a May, so it just lets us keep bouncing and recasting the creature a bunch so that we get a ton of tokens out of it. It feels a little too cute. What does Pen and Blade do? Let's look that up. It's only EDA Trek, by the way, that is doing the refresh thing. Everything else has been fine so far. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each creature you control. Not bad. I don't know that I'm trying to make one big, huge creature. Just checking real quick to make sure none of the things that have popped up on my phone are emergencies, and they're not, so great. Enchantments, what do we want? Guardian Project would be good, it's card draw. We have a bunch of ways of doing that. In effect, create one or more tokens under your control. It creates twice that many instead. That's very good. Is it too good? Like, yeah, there is a line I'm trying to hit, because I can build a super powerful version of this deck that's just going to run people over. We throw Triumph of the Hordes and things in that version. We throw Grand Abolisher in. We just make it a super focused and fast deck. But that's no fun to watch and necessarily play against unless we're playing, like... I personally, as I've said on this stream before, build very mean decks just to play for funsies. I am kind of spiky. I try to build a little more entertainingly for these streams. So stuff like Anointed Procession and Hardened Scales, while great, I'm going to skip for now. Laid to Rest is probably good in our deck, but I'm going to skip it. It is very much only EDA Trek that is doing that, and I hate it. Doubling Season's obviously great, but no. Like, a lot of these things are extremely good, but I don't know that I want them right now. Growing the Rites of Itlamok. Enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom. If you control 4 more creatures, you transform Growing Rites, and it becomes a Cradle of... whatever it is. Cradle of Growth. Cradle. The big, stupid, expensive land. It's not going to be tricky for us to do that, so sure. Beastmaster's Ascension is good, but a little... It feels Windmore-y, I guess. Cryptolith Rite we already threw in. I mean, yeah, we'll throw in the Tithe. It's too good to not play. Sylvan Library is good. Branching Evolution, if one or more +1/+1, there's twice that many +1/+1. There's a ton of effects like that, and we already have a couple in the deck, I think. Intangible Virtue gives all of our tokens Vigilance, which is great. Paladin class can be good. Just got here our Camaraderie and Shamanic Revelation, Glimpse of Nature, Regal Force, Beast Whisper, Soul of the Harvest, or Primordial Sage in the deck. Of the ones you listed, Shamanic Revelation and Beast Whisper are in. We considered Camaraderie. Glimpse of Nature is a possibility. Regal Force is also a possibility. We do have a couple more creature slots we need to fill up. We have, Primordial Sage is the one that taps for 3 mana. Is that right? Am I thinking of the right one? No, that's Somberwald Sage. Which one's Primordial? Whenever you cast a creature spell, you may draw a card. So we have Beast Whisperer. We have Shamanic Revelation. Camaraderie, I know I was thinking of for a second. Camaraderie? How do we spell camaraderie? Come on. How do we spell camaraderie, everybody? Why are we not getting this right? Was it up here? Camaraderie? I know it's somewhere in there. Rite of Harmony I'm a little more meh on for some reason. Glimpse of Nature I'm a little meh on too. Like, the one-shottiness of it. We can craft turns where we go off big, but I don't know why that feels weird to me. There's Camaraderie. X is the number of creatures we control. Creatures we control get +1/+1. 6 mana. 6 mana sorcery. We already have Shamanic Revelation, which is good. I guess the gain X life isn't bad. That's kind of what we want. +1/+1. Sure, we can spend a slot on Camaraderie. The rest of them I think I'm going to skip for now. But I like where your head is at, Dredge for Life. Alright, where are we at here? Glorious Sunrise, what are you? At the beginning? Oh, that's the weird one that does a million of everything. Doubling up of effects is never bad in EDH. I agree. We have many effects that are doubled up at the moment. I think I was talking about right before you got here, I don't want this to be too much of an avalanche of a deck, because it's very easy for this kind of tokens deck to just snowball and roll people over super fast. I'm trying to go a little more funsy than super snowball. This will still snowball, I have no doubt. It's kind of hard not to make these sort of decks snowball. And we do still have some extra slots, so I'll probably end up doubling up on at least one or two of those effects. A little more than I already have, but we will see. Where am I at? Wedding Announcement is fine. I'm not the biggest fan of it. Like, I'd rather have I'd rather have it just keep pumping out creatures turn after turn. The Anthem is a little meh for me. We want our tokens to be humans, just because so much of our stuff triggers off humans right now. Zendikar Surgeon's fine. It's a little spendy. Song of the World Soul, whenever you cast a creature spell, Populate. That's fun. Natural Growth is silly. Path Discovery. This Explore stuff. Primal Vigor. I mean, Primal Vigor is just... it's essentially doubling season, isn't it? I mean, specifically creatures, so it doesn't do the same sort of thing as, like, with Planeswalkers. Rally the Ranks is just an Anthem. Glare of the Subdual feels good. Song of Greylease, we have a couple of things that already turn all of our creatures into Bird's Paradise. Like, it's good, it's fine. I'd rather have effects that stick around forever if I can. If you're making a token go wide deck, look up Shana, Sisei's Legacy, maybe something there not directly under Torren. Yeah, we can do that in a second. We're almost through everything under Torren too, so we'll get there. Glare feels good, because Glare is a way for us, like, if there is some ridiculous or evasive creature that we don't have another way to deal with naturally, Glare just lets us buy time forever. Planeswalkers, I don't know how I feel about Planeswalkers in EDH. They hold a weird spot. If I'm gonna do anything, it'd probably be Vivian. Just because being able to cast creature spells at instant speed is real good. Oh my lord, this refresh thing is so dumb. I don't know if I really want Vivian or not. Did we already look at utility artifacts? We did. Alright, let's look up Sisei. So I like that suggestion. Or not Sisei, Shana. So what did Shana do? Oh, it's the gets +1/+1 for each creature we control. Hey, there's Torens. We already have Adelaide. Join the Dance feels very meh. A lot of these cards are indeed in whatchamacallit, Torens already. Ironroot Warlord's not bad. I don't mind having Mana Seeks that help us pump out creatures. That is a thought. Come on, stop refreshing. I don't know why it's doing that, and I hate it so much. Martial Coop is fun. Martial Coup. We have Shamanic Revelation. Stuff like Succulent Harvest is good, but a little weird. Tristani Discordant is a thought. I don't know how much stealing is going to go on, but it's a thing. Scoot Swarm does pump out tokens. March the Multitudes, I saw. The Convoke and Instant Speed thing is good. They aren't humans, which hurts it a little bit. It's in contention. I know I needed to fill at least 2 more creatures, and I don't yet, so I'd rather fill up those spots first. If I can figure out what I want to be in there. We already had Shalai. Avenger, we're kind of focusing more on just humans if we can. We have a few. Monk of the Open Hand is cute of casting spells. Monk of the Open Hand, like, in this deck, it's gonna get the +1/+1 counter every now and then, but a lot of our stuff gets +1/+1 counters, so I'm not as completely sold on that one. We have the Champion already. We have the Sentinel. Tendershoot Dryad is funny. Voice Resurgence is funny. What fills the spot I want? Tristani Selesnya Voice. Life Gain Populate, that's fun. Good old Amara Tendris. Mycoloth is a thing. Code Spell, Tovolar Huntmaster can be a thing. Huh. Scion of the Wild is boring. Maratandris is funny. But a little spendy. I guess we're playing a bunch of things that essentially give all our stuff Convoke anyway. Oh my lord, I really hate whatever thing is doing that. What is the... Alright, let's throw in March the Multitude for now, maybe? I don't know. I don't know. I like the idea of Tristani Discordant. Just because I like it, like that effect, the gain control of everything you own, is singular enough that I think it could be worth it. I don't know if anybody's going to be playing anything that steals stuff. Knight of the Reliquary is not in the deck yet. That is a good call. We can throw Knight of the Reliquary in there. Let me find the right spot. I should also throw in at least one way to recur lands. Knight of the Reliquary, not just Reliquary. That's one of our creatures. Ramanop Excavator is a good one. I'm gonna hold off on Crucible just because I talked about it at the beginning of the stream. The reason, for example, that Strip Mine isn't in the deck is because if I play too many parts of like Strip Mine Crucible combo, I myself know my play patterns. I'm going to want to just do that, and I don't want to just do that. What is Dearly Departed again? I remember Dearly Departed existing, I just don't remember what it is. As long as it's in your graveyard, each human creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. We have so many ways that things are getting +1/+1 counters. We've hit our creature total with the addition of Knight of the Reliquary. We're at 34, plus our commander, so 35. I'm not the biggest fan of tutors, Dredge for Life. I certainly don't mind them. If I'm building for myself, I'll throw them in. Building on stream, tutors are good. I would only want one, so it's between Worldly and Enlightened. And I don't know what I would want. I don't have enough artifacts or enchantments. I have, at the moment, 2 artifacts here. Let's just, let's look at the deck as it stands right now. Refresh everything so that hopefully it all catches up. Yes, that is the most recent version of things. Get rid of that. Scroll down so we can see things, and scroll down here so we can see things. Here's where we're at with the deck right now. We have 88 cards, so we have room for more things. I just have to figure out which things I want to prioritize. Oh, this didn't throw in some of those other cards we had, though, so let me do that real quick, and then we'll look at the deck. Because, yeah, this is before, like, the Great Henge and Tristani Discordant on all that, so we have more cards than that. We are, in fact, up to 94. Worldly only gets creatures. Yeah, we have a ton of creatures, though, is the thing. There we go. So there's that. Here's the list. Yeah, you can see pretty much everything there. Alright, so here's where we're at. We have 36 creatures, including Torens. Decent amount of spells that kind of double as removal, crop rotation. Are any of our lands, like we have Knight of the Reliquary, am I playing lands that I need to have access to more than anything else? We have, yeah, like 37 lands I'm fine with. I feel like there's some enchantments I'm missing that I was going to think of. Maybe another artifact or 2. 6 more cards to find. Hour of Promise is the green rampy one, right? What do you do? Search your library for up to 2 lane cards, put them on the battlefield tapped and shuffled, and if you control 3 or more deserts, create 2 2/2 black zombie creature tokens. I don't have any deserts right now. Like, I get it's just not a bad land by itself, or a bad card, but yeah, it's not great if we're not playing deserts. I'm not doing Helix Pinnacle. We are not that deck. I have built Helix Pinnacle decks before. I built a Angus Mackenzie Helix Pinnacle deck back in the day. That was one of the meanest things I ever built. It Gets Any Land is very good. Yeah, I'm just trying to, like, looking at the list, are there lands I am definitely going to, like, need access to, or else? Like, Cavern of Souls is good, Gavany Township lets us start growing stuff, Karn's Bastion lets us start growing everything, Kil'jaeden Outpost lets us end the Castle Ardenvale. Just straight up anthems I'm not the biggest fan of. We have a bunch of things that give our stuff either +1/+1 counters or +1/+1. Like, redundancy is good, but there is overloading on that kind of effect. That returns something. See receipts. Oh, what is that card? I know what card you're thinking of. I can picture it in my head. I just can't think of the name. Metallic Mimic, maybe. Maya Hollow is good. What's the Core Haven? What does Core Haven do? Core Haven feels like a land I might want. Prevent all damage that would be dealt by target attacking creature this turn. That can be very good. Yeah, especially other people's commanders. Dex name Mirari's Wake. It's in there, Mirari's Wake. It's one of those cards that's just... like, I don't know how to say this without sounding dumb. It's just good. Like, it just feels kind of boring and good, if that makes sense. I'm not trying to be a hipster or anything. I'm just trying to think, what are my other options before I do Mirari's Wake? Renegade Rallier, that is a good call. I like the idea of that, and I think we have a decent amount of CMC 2 or less. Really quick, I'm going to throw Core Haven into the list, which gives us 5 spots left. Renegade Rallier. When a Renegade Rallier enters the battlefield, if a permanent you control left the battlefield this turn, return target permanent card with converted mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Well, Rest in Peace doesn't work with Renegade Rallier, or some of those things. How do we feel about Renegade Rallier? Let's look at our list real quick. How many CMC 2 or less things do we have? Specifically, we have a bunch of our like little dork creatures, and then some more important ones like Champion of the Parish, Esper Sentinel, Hopeful Initiate can be good, Micaeus is funny, Cathar Commando is repeatable removal, I guess, at that point. Conclave Mentor is fun, Tilda, Dawnheart Prime is good. Yeah, there's a decent amount of targets here, and then if we go into... like if any of this stuff dies, we can rebuy Mind Stone. Any of our enchantments that get blown up, well, Cryptolith writes about it. It's not bad. There's Eternal Witness. What is the other Eternal Witness thing? The one that has Eternalize. Eternal... something else. Was it not Eternal? Timeless Witness? Timeless Witness, I think. Yeah, there we go. Alright, let's throw those two in. So yeah, I like Renegade Rallier, and Timeless Witness just lets us buy back things that have died, which feels good. Play Harmonic Sliver. We're playing Aura Shards. So, you know, that's a thing. Harmonic Sliver, I like if we're playing more Changelings. Timeless Witness we'll throw in. Renegade Rallier. Which puts us up to, it should be 97 now? Yeah, 97. Rest in Peace I'm not super on board with. Metallic Mimic could be a thing. Just scrolling back up through what people have suggested. Promise Goods, we could start doing tutors and such. We added Knight of the Reliquary and Ramanop Excavator. Did, right? Ramanop, yeah, it's up there. Yeah. Let's refresh the lists. So they are all current. I think you can see most of it there. Let me look up Metallic Mimic. I know mostly what it does, I just want to be sure of the specifics. Metallic Mimic. Choose a creature type. It is the chosen creature type. Each of those enters with a +1/+1 counter on it. I mean, it's not bad. So at what point do we have enough of that effect, and are we growing our creatures fast enough that Skull Clamp is no longer what we want? Do we end up cutting Skull Clamp at some point? Like, we do have to have a decent number of pieces on the field for that to happen, where Skull Clamp becomes irrelevant. I'm good with Metallic Mimic, so let's throw that in. And we are 39th creature, technically. Which I do like, having a very creature-heavy deck. Did I actually add the card? I forgot to actually hit add card, I just hit save deck. I am not putting in Eye of Ugin, but I appreciate your moxie. Alright, things are happening. I guess I can go, if we're going like obvious good cards and we're wanting to protect all our stuff, I should probably throw in Teferi's Protection. Urza's Saga doesn't make a ton of sense. If we only fetch Soul Ring, Shadow Spear could be a replacement. Like, I'm leaving Skull Clamp in just because we do need a goodly amount of our stuff out before it becomes irrelevant, and Skull Clamp helps us get to that point. Like, ideally, we do want Skull Clamp to be irrelevant, because if that happens, we're in a great spot. But Skull Clamp can be a thing that very much helps us get to that point. Shadow Spear might be a thing just so we have another target for Urza's anyway. Trample and Lifelink, and then, yeah, permanents our opponent's control lose hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Like, that is a singular enough effect that I am willing to throw that in, and that would be our 100th card. So let's add that, save the deck, we'll take a look at what we have here overall. Alright, so this is straight up 100. There we go. What are we gonna miss if I try to get everything on here? So right there, the cards we're missing that you can't see because where it cuts things off. I can just do this. Hold on. Want a little more room? Still cut off some amount of stuff here. Alright, almost. Let's get rid of that. Alright, the only card you can't see on that list right now is Sky Shroud Claim up top above Shamanic Revelation. But here's where we're at. Entwined Tooth Nail, get OG Avacyn and OG Sigarda for all indestructible and opponents can't make you sacrifice. OG Sigarda is actually something that could be in, but one, I don't know about Entwining Tooth and Nail. Like, what are we cutting for some of these things? Because like I said, this is 100. I want a bunch of Raths, especially since a lot of our Raths dodge a lot of our stuff. Oh, that's what I wanted to throw in, if we're being real cheeky. Just because people are going to wrath me with this kind of deck. So the thought I had was we can get real stupid with it and throw in stuff like Faith's Reward and Second Sunrise. Second Sunrise, everybody gets their stuff back. Faith's Reward, it's just me. Faith's Reward, like, full confession, I am an old school Eggs player in Modern. Back when that was a thing. I have thrown Faith's Reward into random EDH decks before, and it is always one of the most hilarious ways to win a game. Is the board gets super messy and whoever's the most behind finally says, alright, we're resetting, and like Cleansing Nova's everything, or what have you, and you just Faith's Reward, get your entire board back, and everybody else just dies. Yeah. I'm kinda down for that. Selfless Cliffweather is some Wrath Protection. We have a couple of bits of Wrath Protection already. Like, we're not helpless when it comes to it. We already have Heroic Intervention, we have Teferi's Protection, and then the one other one I'm trying to think of that's somewhere in this list here. Where is it? Inspiring Call is semi-Wrath Protection against some of our stuff. It's mostly there for the card draw, I guess. Let's look up some of these things. So, Selfless Cliff Weaver. We can't throw that in there, can we? Because the back half is black? That doesn't work with color identity, right? Creatures you control gain indestructible. And the back half is a big wrath, but it's black. So I thought, we can't do that. Shielded by Faith. Did I end up throwing Moms in? I don't think I threw Moms in. Shielded by Faith, enchant creature has indestructible. Whenever a creature is on the battlefield, we may enchant. It's protection for one thing, kind of. The indestructible. Maybe. Unless, I'm less down for Shielded by Faith than some of the other things. Yeah, color identity is a hoser. There was, like, boy howdy if I could throw Noble Hierarch and stuff into this deck. Would I? But I cannot. Haunting Voyage. Isn't that blue? Is that white? Oh, it's black. Yeah, we can't do that. What are y'all talking about? So at the moment, like, Faith's Reward I want to throw in. What? The Sigarda Host of Herons is the original one? No ye. No, not doing that. Flying Hexproof. Spells and abilities your opponent's control can't cause you to sack permanents. It's very good. OG Avacyn's just everything's indestructible, right? OG Avacyn, like, here's the thing. That's just such a boring way to win. People can exile my stuff. Teague is proactive wrath protection. It is. It also stops me from casting a lot of stuff. What is the foretell or white card that returns creatures? Let's look. The Oracle text. Foretell. Card color is white. So there are 20. Cosmic Intervention. Permanent we control will be put into a graveyard from the battlefield this turn. Exile it instead. Return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. That is an instant. That's funny. One is an angel. Another has a boat in it. So yeah, there's Cosmic Intervention. Which is funny. I do like that. It's not Starheim. Glorious Protector enters the battlefield. You may exile any number of non-angel creatures you control until Glorious Protector leaves the battlefield. So the problem with Glorious Protector, actually the problem with both of those, and with Faith's Reward to some extent, like, all of these things are semi-wrath protection, but outside of, like, Heroic Intervention, Teferi's Protection stuff we already have, all of these things are still, like, all of our tokens go away forever. Because once they leave the battlefield, they're just gone. This Glorious Protector isn't bad. None of these other foretell cards I think are going to be of a ton of use to us. Cosmic Intervention is very funny. Would be put into a graveyard from the battlefield this turn. Exile it instead. The problem I can see with Cosmic Intervention, didn't say so. Angel, yeah, exile any number, it doesn't phase out. You're thinking of the other one, the not foretell one. It's just 3 mana. It's a 3 mana creature. It doesn't have foretell. It's the other thing that I... Oh, good lord. Is anybody thinking... Yes. I know the card you're thinking of. I just can't put what the name is in my head. That's how he words, right? Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, 3 mana, white creature. Where'd you go? Type. There we go. Guardian of Faith. When Guardian of Faith enters the battlefield, any number of other target creatures you control phase out. That I like. Alright, so I'm going to start putting some of these things possibly in the deck, and then we can edit down from there. So the stuff I wanted to add was Faith's Reward, which admittedly is probably less on theme than something like Guardian of Faith, just because Guardian of Faith is at least a creature, and we like creatures in our deck. Angel of Glory's Rise. Here we go. Alright. Angel of Glory's Rise. That is the recursion one, right? When Angel of Glory's Rise enters the battlefield, exile all zombies, then return all human creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. We do have a good amount of humans already. I'm pretty sure they're mostly humans. Right? Like, Arbor Elf isn't, so 1. I'm not going to count them all, but yeah, it's a lot of humans. How many soldiers do you have? If a lot, we have a decent amount. The thing is, all of the stuff we're throwing out, I don't know what I cut for those things. They're good. But something has to leave, because the list we have right now is 100. So nothing gets to stay in unless something comes out. What? Like, 38 lands is that a lot? That... I don't know. We have a good amount of, like, Dorks and Cryptoliths, right, and things like that. Do we need to go lower? Do we need to go higher? Do I cut a basic or two? What is our split on colors? We're a little more green than white, so if I'm going to do anything, we cut 1 plains. Unless there's another land in here that's even less worth it right now. One of our utility things, but I think they're all good. Like, Urza's Saga is probably the least useful one because it grabs, at the moment, Shadow Spear, Skull Clamp, or Soul Ring. All 3 of which are very good. Very good. So, maybe not. What else do we got? Rogue's Passage. Rogue's Passage I'm actually kind of fine cutting. Like, we are going to have big things, but... yeah, I don't know. Rogue's Passage is a little unfun, I guess? Yeah, I don't know what else I really cut. What do we do? Alright, let's cut Rogue's Passage. Where are you at, Rogue's Passage? You're going to be way up near the top. Alright, we cut Rogue's Passage. We're here. I'm going to cut out Faith's Reward from our maybe pile. So that just slots Guardian of Faith into where Rogue's Passage was, which puts us back to 100. We can do Balinock Banneret. I don't mind Angel of Glory's Rise. That seems funny. I think that's good. I think I am willing to call this a deck. Yeah. There's obviously differently powerful or more powerful stuff we can be doing. But as far as what's going to play well on a stream and be fun for the group we have, I feel like this version of It's Training Men, which I'm going to say as much as I can during the stream, because that is the name of the deck, because Torren is all about training, and he does spit out a bunch of soldiers, which I think the tokens are men, or at least I can find ones that are, just so that the deck name makes sense. If it was, it's training people is fine, but it's not as good of a joke as with the song. Anyway, as I was saying, I think this is good. I think this is where I want to be as a deck. 37 lands is fine. We have more than enough other ways of making mana that we're not going to fall behind on anything. Don't have too many artifacts. We have a bunch of protection and ways to blow up artifacts and enchantments. We have a bunch of wraths. A bunch. We have, what? 4? 3? We have 3 wraths. Yeah. A little bit of targeted removal. That does not count as targeted creature removal because it can hit any kind of permanent with Beast Within or Generous Gift. Non-land permanent, I think, for Beast Within. Can Beast Within hit lands? Is that a thing? Beast Within, destroy target permanents. Yeah, we can even blow up lands with that. We have land recursion a little bit with Ramanop Excavator. We have card recursion with Timeless and Eternal Witness. We have lands that both thin us out and do a bunch of stuff. Yeah, I think this is a deck. I think this is pretty good. I really like Glare of the Subdual in there. It's just the most annoying possible card. Oh, Glare of the Subdual, you are so annoying. Yeah, cool. Okay, so with that, this is the deck. It's Training Men that I'm going to be playing in a couple of weeks on December 29th, Wednesday at 2 p.m. And the people I'm going to be playing, since we announce it now, at the end of the stream, which we are swiftly approaching since we built the deck and it's almost